was shadowing us, right behind us, right on the side of us. You could kind of see the thing moving through the woods.
All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature, and I knew in my heart, I knew in my mind, and the whole night, this isn't a man.
And then this thing walks across the road, takes a turn towards us, and then leaps over a guardrail.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black thing, is all I can call it.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, June 21st, 2020. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch detective, Steve Kulls, along with my co-host downstairs. Yes, Mr. Chris Bennett. And Chris, happy Father's Day to you, my brother.
Happy Father's Day to you, Steve. I appreciate that. And, I was just saying, I was just getting ready to say that every time a show comes on now, it's got this like really tribal beat. I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Well, I did compose that myself, actually.
Well, we're very good. Did a good job, man. I like it.
I got the software to do it now, so I've been playing with not trying to tick off YouTube too much with.
Yeah, well,
So anyway, let's get into the greetings and salutations.
Solicitations?
Solicitation. You got Dave Winter. Welcome, Dave. We got hey, Dave. Alan. What's going on, Alan? Welcome.
Alan.
And Jimmy. Jimmy's there. Rick.
Jimmy.
Hello, Rick.
Hi, Rick.
And Charlie Wonton. Hello, Dad.
Charlie.
Hey, Mike. Good to see you.
Tack.
Not a Yankee fan. Hello from Nottingham, England.
Wow.
Yankee. Yep.
Welcome.
And greetings over the pond.
Yeah.
Carrie, hello. Welcome. And Chris,
Carrie.
welcome.
Oh,
And
Chris.
those are the ones who've checked in so far. I'm sure there's going to be more check-ins as the night progresses. But it's good to be back. Took a couple of weeks off. It comes to a time where sometimes you just, unfortunately, I think I was letting circumstances dictate my actions. And I just kind of, with all the bad news and the COVID stuff going on the last couple of weeks, I just needed some time away. Away from social media. In fact, I think it was like a week and a half. I didn't post a thing on social media until I did a podcast. I was a guest on Where's My Sage, which Mike, Tactical Bigfoot Research co-hosts. I was on them, their show earlier in the week. and kind of spun me up a little bit. And it was actually Cliff Barrickman who kind of gave me the idea for tonight's show, because we got in this big discussion of Sasquatch origins. So, and Rick, hey, when is Sasquatch stories? Well, I'm hoping to have one come out this week. So a couple of more hellos. We got Cryptidville. Hello, Cryptidville. Sherry, hello. Patrick,
Sherry.
how you doing? And of course, Rick, how are you? Yes, we'll get one out. I'm sorry. I needed a couple of weeks off, and last Sunday was a complete. And Linda is sort of a newbie from Florida, bunkering down.
Hi, Linda.
And welcome back, Linda. Glad to see you. Mick, and Mick is there. Thank you,
Ken,
Mick. Same to you, my brother.
Ken Parnell. Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
Mick, welcome.
So everybody is in the house. So, and it's good to have you all back. So, and it was kind of funny, in New York, they opened up church for the first time. First time they've allowed church services to go on in the state, which was really cool. And Uncle Artie says hello. Hello from Uncle Artie. Welcome.
Uncle Artie, welcome, bud. So you got to go to church, Steve?
I went to church, and it was a very, very interesting thing. And I realized something, that yes, I was letting circumstances dictate my actions, and so letting my actions dictate the circumstances. So kind of spun me up a little bit. And all right, good message today. Needed message to put my butt in gear and let my actions dictate circumstances rather than the other way around. Well, and of course, hello, Jeremy. Good to see you here over on YouTube. Got a lot of new YouTube followers. Welcome all.
Thank you, Sherry.
And be sure you all to like, share, and subscribe. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, please.
So, but anyway, so I was on the show, and we got talking about the origins of Sasquatch, part a number of things. And it really, and it really kind of, it wasn't even, it was just like one of a dozen questions, and it was like one question, and it was like, we handled it really quick, and it took maybe like 15 minutes, but man, I got thinking, today'd be a Mick is sober tonight.
Congratulations, Mick. One day.
That's funny. So I was thinking, it's probably a good time to, even learn, because when I put these things together, I learn myself. It's one of those things that I learn as I do. And it's a lot of fun sometimes. And man, my head is popping with terms I can hardly pronounce. So, but a big question people always ask is, well, where does Sasquatch come from? Well, Uncle Artie said my actions got me a restraining order.
Be careful there, Art.
Oh, he's going to fit in well. But anyway, so I got putting this together, and we're gonna go down a couple of things now. There's a lot of people, especially one clickbait artist, that likes to say, well, people like to think, people are being paid to say Sasquatch is a big gorilla or is a Gigantopithecus. Well, as they find out, as you start parsing through the whole thing, that a Gigantopithecus is not necessarily all ponged. And we're going to explain all that in a bit. But it's really some interesting stuff, some facts, and I'm hoping the audience will get involved tonight, because we love when the audience gets involved and asks questions and
oh yeah, you guys got to keep us on our toes. Sharp guys, sharp people.
That's right. Just prove our sobriety. So anyway, shall we kick it off?
Happy Father's Day to everybody out there that's a father.
That's right. And so shall we kick it off, Mr. Bennett?
Let's go.
Let's go. So the possible origins of Sasquatch. So first, let's talk about Homo sapiens, where we sit on the now, if you don't mind, I'm looking over there a little bit, because that's where my screen is to read some of this stuff. So if you look, that everything is pretty much the same. Animalia, chordata, which means we have a spinal column. Mammalia, which means we're mammals. Order, primates, huge thing. Everything we look at, whether it be hominin or pongid, is a primate.
Yep.
So the suborder Haloperini, the infraorder Simiforms. Family. Now, here's where we get into the interesting thing. Family is Hominidae, and that is anything that is in the great ape family. So we're all, everything we look at today is going to be in the family Hominidae. Everything is going to be the same down to the family portion. But when we get to the subfamily, this is where it gets interesting, because when people say we're hominin, that's the subfamily right there. Hominin, and the tribe Hominini, and the genus Homo, and the species Homo sapiens, or H sapiens, as some people like to call it.
Genus Homos. We're all homos, Steve. Do you know that?
That's right. Well, I'm homogenized.
Homine. Okay, excuse me. I'm sorry, folks. It's been like early 90s since I've seen any of this. Hominidae.
Homina.
All right.
So that's what we are. So some of the things then what we're going to have is we're going to have the breakdown of all of these, and you'll see it. Some of this stuff is going on, and you might want to keep it in the family.
I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
So anyway, the first one is the Gigantopithecus, aka the Gigantopithecus blackie. Obviously this is the prehistoric, and it's related to the orangutan. And it stood very tall. It was, standing up straight, it would have stood 10 foot tall. And in evolution, things can get smaller, they can get larger. Homo sapiens, us, if you look at our, tracking, we are pretty tall as far as our line. Everybody before us was shorter, and we're going to get into that too. So, I mean, this is all fun stuff tonight. So the Gigantopithecus, of course, the asterisks are everything that they share in common with us down to, and we go all the way down to the tribe. So the family is in actuality, Hominidae. So somebody says, well, the Gigantopithecus is nothing but a big gorilla. No, right really? There. Yeah, the family, it comes from a hominin background. The tribe is the Civipithecini. The Civipithecini, genus Gigantopithecus, and the species is Gigantopithecus blackie. Mm-hmm. Now, some of the things about Gigantopithecus is that they're the closest relatives to the orangutans. Well, I love how it's the closest living. They're not living. No, maybe
that would be closest living relatives are orangutans, probably.
Yeah,
right. Maybe.
Well, they were the closest living relatives to the maybe the word got dropped off of that.
It works. It works.
Yeah. A question came in the chat room.
Oh, oops.
Are the only two known Gigantopithecus still two lower jaw bones and 1,000 plus teeth? As far as I know, there may be 3 or 4 lower jaw bones. But again, I always caution everybody. This is a good example of, why there's no Sasquatch in the fossil records. Is, just look at the Gigantopithecus. What do we have to prove their existence? We don't have any long bones. We don't have vertebrae. We don't have ribs. We don't even have a skull. We just have some jaw bones and teeth.
Right. So, and I'm sure everybody out there has probably seen a replica casting of a Gigantopithecus skull.
Yep.
And if you'll notice, there's on a lot of them, they'll have one little section of the jawbone. I think it's down on the left side. That's a different color. And what that is, that represents the actual fossil they used, to make up the skull, the features. And believe me, I couldn't understand how they could do this. These guys can do this. They can take a small piece of bone and create a whole skull structure based on that fragment, and it's really cool. But they've not found any full skulls that I know of yet. It's just been jaw pieces and teeth.
Right, and as Ken says, there's about 38 teeth, which is 6 more than we have. Or 6 more than we have. if you look, they have two incisors. They have a pair of canines, premolars, and three molars in each half of the lower. So they have canines. Yeah, that's right. There are no chimpanzee fossils, only live chimps. That is correct. And Dave says, what if Gigano was really a dwarf with a really big head?
Well, that's funny. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking, because you can go to any natural history museum and you see fossils of humans, or maybe even you have to look in a drawer at some of them, but some of them they've got our historical fossil record on display. And most of that, well, what you're looking at there is a fake. It's a reproduction, and they'll have the same one in every museum, But basically, the really fossilized remains that they have of human beings and our ancestors would probably fit on maybe a large conference table, maybe 30 feet long by 7-8 feet wide. You could fit all the true remains on that.
Right, yeah.
And all the rest of the stuff you see in museums is reproduction of those fossils that are found. And I used to think the same thing, that oh my gosh, there's all these fossils, but there's not a lot. It's not really.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Ken says, or where did I see it? They said there was really, somebody had said that they really don't know if it was Alan said that if gigantos were really quadrupedal or bipedal. Actually, I think by the tooth enamel, they found that because of its eating habits, that it turns to be a quadruped, not a biped, for whatever reason.
Plus, where their strapulation of the skull recreation, where the backbone would connect to the skull, would be a bipedal animal.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is that their carbon and oxygen isotope analysis of their teeth indicated that they inhabit a dense, humid, closed canopy forest, right, which would be where they were found in the fossils were found in China. Yep. Now, to me, that speaks volumes that, hey, you know what? This may not necessarily be the cat we're looking for to be a Sasquatch. And mind you, when this stuff was first discovered, they didn't have some of these tests, so they didn't know where necessarily they lived, or so it's entirely possible that Dr. Grover Krantz didn't have that information in front of him at the time. Certainly one possibility, but more and more it's looking like it's not.
Well, I don't know now. I've seen it. I've seen one of those skulls, and to me, that skull-shaped design looked really similar to something that I had seen.
Well, yeah, and think about it. If you take just about everything we look at tonight and blow it up to a bigger size, it's going to look very much similar.
Right.
Some of the charts that I have towards the end of this are pretty interesting to look at.
Right.
So the next slide, if I can get this to advance, is, of course, and this is one I don't believe is anything to do with, but I've heard people throw it out, Homo heidelbergensis, and that was probably one of the pre-humans. But then again, they were lightly covered in hair. They didn't have much hair cover. They were much like us.
Yeah.
As you can see, they follow us all the way down to the species.
Yeah.
So these guys are really, really close to us.
Right. And if you saw one of those guys in the woods, you'd probably just holler, "Hey, buddy, put a shirt on,"
Exactly. Some of the things, it's been considered to have been a direct ancestor of us. They have auditory sensitivity similar to us. They were probably differentiate many sounds. Now, here's an interesting thing. They're the only ones next to us that did not have air sacs, which are basically the products in the laryngeal diverticula involved in vocalization. So the loss of air sacs may have contributed to humans' ability to develop vocal language. And there's evidence that they were right-handed. And right-handedness is associated with the development of language among hominins. Isn't that strange?
That's interesting.
That all the ones that did not develop language, they were kind of ambidextrous. When language was developed, for some reason, we became dominant in one hand or the other. And they did fashion I
look at some of the comments. Yeah.
doesn't count if you looked at one of those skull pics and one of Larry Fitz. I forget me. Yep, and much like us, but they're gone. And I got an interesting chart for the who was around, you know, in that whole. It's really cool. Some of the stuff is really cool. And hello, David's here, and hello, OT. Good to see you, brother.
Welcome.
So they also fashion tools such as spears or axes. So one would think very easily that, you know, in evolution, you go forward, you don't go backward. So if they were doing that, chances are they didn't revert not to going that as evolution progressed. So, yep, I think these guys are dead and gone. So, of course, now we have the Australopithecus, the Australopithecus africanus. And again, looks a lot like a Sasquatch. Flat nose, you know, hairy, kind of the same tint of hair, but not very. Yeah. But if you notice, they're not heavily haired like a chimpanzee or a bonobo. As you can see, they go all the way down on their chart, almost to us, where they deviate at the sub-tribe level. Right. So they're related to us very closely, but they brachiated. So some of the traits is that we apparently descended from these guys. Their body proportions closely resemble those of bonobos, or the paniscus. Leading suggests that bonobos may have phenotypically similar to Australopithecus. Furthermore, models suggest that they were fully hair covered, more like chimpanzees and bonobos, unlike humans. So just as I said, that, you know, they kind of have the hair covering like a bonobo.
Yeah.
Australopithecus are thought to have eaten mainly fruit, vegetables, and tubers, and perhaps easy to catch animals such as small lizards. So they would normally eat, you know, very, very small type of carnivorous diets. Now let's see.
Mostly vegetarians with a little animal protein snack every now and then. If they could catch a lizard or a frog or something. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that.
Right. And the other thing is they used manufactured stone tools.
Well,
so this is telling me that they may not be related to the Sasquatch, because again, you don't lose that when you you face evolution. You either die out completely and that's it, you're gone, or as you evolve, you gain more. And obviously they've descended from us. So this kind of back. So if you're looking to think that, okay, maybe at this point, this is where the Sasquatch brachiated from us. Right. But apparently it's not, because it looks like if they're using stone tools, or manufactured stone tools, why don't the Sasquatch manufacture their own tools? Yes, you should have heard. I took about 6 Excedrin today putting this together. So,
and you know, we don't have reports that are that talk about Sasquatches carrying spears or hatchets or axes.
Manufactured tools, right? And that's the amazing thing, because we'd be finding them if they did. I mean, we would obviously be finding it. And thank you, Mick. Mick says, in all seriousness, this is a great topic to cover. Far too many believers don't understand it, but does, because what we're looking at is, where did the Sasquatch break off? And by the tool use thing, we can kind of track it down a little bit to where it may logically, because they don't manufacture tools. Not saying they don't use tools. They don't
Right.
manufacture. Heidelbergensis, forget about it. They're very closely related to us. Australopithecus, they're another descendant of ours, but they manufactured tools as well. Gigantopithecus did not use tools at all that they know of. And, it was more of a tropical type of creature than, because they lived in dense jungle, rainforest type of things. So, I mean, each of it's very, very interesting. And of course, my favorite now, and it's one of Cliff Barrickman's as well, is the Paranthropus, or the Paranthropus robustus, which some say is just a robust form of the Australopithecus. And they do look a lot like Sasquatch necessarily would, if you look at it. Obviously, these are artist conceptions. Right. So, the one on the left looks a little more ape-like. The one on the right looks a little more human-like. So one would think that perhaps it would be somewhere in between. But what really stands out is the hair, is the type of hair. If you notice the hair length that's being drawn on there, what they suspect it is.
Right.
So, and if you think about it, we look at this line. Again, it breaks off after the tribe. It belongs to our tribe as well. So they're closely related to us, but not necessarily are. They break off at the subtribe, which is basically an Australopithecine, and then their genus is Paranthropus. So, and their actual name is the Paranthropus robust. They had a massively built, tall, and flat skull with a prominent gorilla-like sagittal crest along the midline, which anchored massive temporalis muscles used in chewing. Now, I've talked about the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Yeah.
This does not differentiate between male and female. So it makes sense that if Patty is real and has a sagittal crest, that this makes sense to where it would be more related to. They were bipeds. Their hips, legs, and feet resemble both, the Australopithecus and modern humans. Now, it says resemble, not identical, resembles.
Right.
They have a modern human-like big toe. Don't we see that in Bigfoot tracks?
Right.
They had a human-like foot posture and the range of motion, but the more distal, they had a distal ankle joint. So it basically, again, this is what we also see in track evidence, is we don't see necessarily a modern human toe-off gait. There we go. Their distal ankle joint would have inhibited the toe-off gait, which is the reason why they're flat-footed. Reason why they have flat feet. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Paranthropus were generalist feeders, but diet seemed to have ranged dramatically with location. So it seems like they were omnivorous. Interesting, because the Sasquatch is omnivorous.
Right.
Now, here's the interesting thing. They used bone tools, but they were not manufactured or purposely shaped for a task. They were not scavenged randomly either. There was preferences for certain bones. Raw materials, like specifically hand-picked. This could indicate a similar cognitive ability to contemporary Stone Age Homo sapiens. So, in other words, just like a bonobo or a chimpanzee, pan troglodyte, they have this ability to use cognitive ability to say, I'm going to use this. Now, they may not forge them, they may not sharpen them, they may not make spears out of them, but they use what's given in front of them. This sounds dramatically like what traditional Sasquatch sightings have seen. If they are seen using something, they're using a unmanufactured item as a tool.
Right. Stick or something. Yeah.
And the other interesting thing is it's generally thought that the Paranthropus preferred to inhabit wooded riverine landscapes. Again,
that's interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting. Just like, Now, OT says, I remember Native American legends. Bigfoot used to kidnap women and children and warriors from the tribe and would know where they are because Bigfoot had fires. Well, here's the interesting thing. I think, and I've discussed this with a bunch of people, including Native Americans. Yeah. And a lot of those stories with Sasquatch kidnapping women and children could be just urban legend. In other words, why were urban legends created? Everybody's had that cemetery story where the couple is trying to make out in the cemetery.
Yeah.
And they're in the car, and then all of a sudden they hear, and they look up, and they look, and there's blood dripping on their car, and up there is an axe or somebody hanging or something.
Ooh.
Very, very similar. And these stories are throughout every city. Almost every community in the United States has a story similar, a cemetery story.
Yeah, you
And
know.
what that is an urban legend. An urban legend is created to scare people off from doing a particular thing.
Yeah, don't go parking in a cemetery, guys. Come on.
Right. Right.
We never had that problem in the country. I mean, of course, that's been a long time ago, but
and actually, Mick says, point of fact, sagittal crests are factor in size and not of sex. Incorrect.
Well,
Incorrect.
Yeah,
I have an anthropologist, Dr. John Napier, in a couple. The sagittal crest is prominent in male. Well, the existing male. It's a trait of a male gorilla, and it's a trait of a male orangutan to have a sagittal crest.
Well, yeah, it has to do with the muscle structure. The muscle structure that, the males have more dense muscle structure. They're built heavier, larger, so they're going to have bigger muscles to work that big jaw.
Right.
So that's where that crest comes in. But you do see some examples of a rounded head on a male individual, like in the lowland gorillas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but now we're talking that's gorillas, sorry, but that's completely different species than what we're trying to put. But the similarities are there.
Right.
But that sagittal crest, though, that's particularly predominantly a male feature.
And the function of that is to give them a stronger jaw strength, and when they combat with other males, to have that upper jaw strength. Joe Critelli, hello, Joe. Good to see you. Asked, what do I know about Java Man? I believe, I'm not sure. He was mentioning very interesting. I really don't know if Java Man really fits in. It may be an Australopithecine. It may be a Neanderthal. Not entirely sure, but I mean, it might even be a Paranthropus. So I'm not sure where it sits on what. Well, Frank, thank you for coming in.
Welcome, Frank. Glad to see you.
I'm late. You can leave the note in the office next to the principal's office.
We don't care, Frank. Welcome, buddy. We're glad to see you.
So here's an odd question. Most great apes don't have much of a forehead as compared to humans. How does Paranthropus robustus compare in that aspect? Well, that's a good question. I don't want to jump to the end of this just yet, but we're going to show sizes of skulls and stuff. We have drawn comparisons of the robustus skull with the Australopithecine skull with the Homo sapiens skull. So we're going to get to that one. And again, here's an interesting thing too about Homo sapiens and people who say that Sasquatch are humans. This is where they go biologically wrong. You ever hear of somebody saying a Bigfoot has a protruding chin? I can't think of one.
No.
That's because in Homo sapiens, because of our teeth structure and our food is softer. We don't have to chew raw bamboo. We don't have to chew shoots and tubers and all that wonderful stuff. Our evolution has developed what they call a trident in our chin. And that gives us a protruding chin.
Right.
And that is a Homo sapien trait.
And maybe they're talking, instead of the chin, Steve, they may be talking about a protruding mouth structure, like
right.
No,
I'm specifically saying that the protruding chin is a Homo sapien only type of trait. Mm-hmm. And that's because of our jaw structure. As we ate cooked food, our ability to have the need to have stronger teeth. Actually, our teeth are a lot less dense than our predecessors. And that makes sense. Just like the spiders that are ground dwellers over evolution don't have eyes. Because they can't see anyway. They're in total darkness, so they lose their eyes. So we have developed, I forget the exact, it's called the trident something or other. But what it does is it causes our chins to protrude, and it's where all our jaw bones connect in. Unlike the earlier man and the Pongids and the other one, they did not have that. So they didn't have protruding chins like we do. And we actually have floating, kind of almost a float type of protruding chin where we can actually draw it in if we want to. So that's something they did. But they did have teeth that kind of projected a bit, the protruding mouth. And that was because their teeth were so dense and they had more teeth than we, some of them had more teeth than we did. But I find all that the Paranthropus stuff very interesting, how they fit. Now, if we look at the different types of man, we have the Cro-Magnon man, which is our direct predecessors, Neanderthals, and heidelbergensis, Homo heidelbergensis. You all saw they kind of fit within the same range. We're a little bit bigger. We have, gone to evolution and became taller.
Well, I don't like it that they made the Neanderthal bald-headed. I'm sure they had hair.
I can't explain that. Maybe I should have put a Yankee cap on it.
Red socks.
I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like me without the protruding chin.
Well, I was trying to debate here. Put a goatee on that guy.
Right. But if you look at if you look at between the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal and the heidelbergensis, you can see the jawline is more robust, whereas our jaws are more narrowed now because we don't need those strong jaw muscles to chew food.
Right.
So, and the one interesting thing also is that we have another one we have to send to the principal's office. Well, better late than never. Welcome aboard, Aaron.
Hey, Aaron.
One of the more interesting things is that as I look at this chart is look at the narrowing of the face in the Cro-Magnon man versus it's just we started cooking our food, and the creation of fire and eating cooked foods made it easier for our brains to process the nutrients, which caused our advancement in evolution. It caused our brains to grow in size. It caused our and this is what evolutionists are saying that caused this. It was the cooking of food, the heating of food, eating of really enabled us. So
because we could start cooking our food, it made our brains grow.
Yep.
All right.
So then we have, of course, differences between Neanderthal and and
Mick. Thanks, Mick. Appreciate that, bud.
Notice he didn't mention me. The Chrome. So again, if you look the elongated skull, Neanderthal had an elongated skull, had a supraorbital ridge. That was the bony brow above the eyes.
Yeah.
Again, you'll see that but we don't have that as humans.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So there's no reason to think Bigfoot doesn't make fire. I got a good reason. I've never come across a fire in the woods by itself that was set by somebody just left burning. I've never found a fire deep in the woods. I've been and nobody has seen a Sasquatch starting a fire. There's been no credible source of that. So and there's plenty of reason to think why Bigfoot doesn't make fire, because the only thing that made fire was Neanderthal on up, heidelbergensis, us. Those are the three that really started making fires. All the rest did not. So all the rest did not make complicated tools. So, and besides, how many forest fires would be started by a Bigfoot? And you just don't go in the woods and say, "What's that fire up there?" Obviously, if they were making fires, they would be found.
It'd be easier to find, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You just look out across the woods, and, oh, there's a smoke from a campfire. Let's go over there and look for Bigfoot.
So again, it says little or no protruding chin for Neanderthals, and that was because of their jawbones.
Yeah.
They had receding chin, and modern humans is a congenital. So if there's a person that has a receding chin, it's a congenital condition in Homo sapiens.
I still see guys in Kentucky who look like both of those dudes there.
Well, that's just an artist's conception, Chris.
Well, I'm saying, you got your short stature, heavily built, muscled up guys with sort of a sloping forehead. They can be found in about anywhere too, And we've all got some Neanderthal in us, maybe some more than others.
Now, Frank made one Native American story woman who said she was kidnapped, said the Bigfoot made fire in a cave, but one of many tales out there. Agreed. It could be just an old wives' tale passed down, or it could be somebody dressed in furs, and there are not enough good observations to say they don't make fire. No, you can't just say they make primate objective. I disagree with you, because just throw out there, say, oh, well, I believe they make fire, but you can't make a claim with no evidence. That's completely what's the problem with the Bigfoot community is, well, I think they can shapeshift. Well, where's your evidence? Well, I don't have any, but there's no evidence to say they don't. That doesn't work. Doesn't work. There's evidence to say there's a Sasquatch. There's enough witnesses. There's enough track evidence. There's enough to say they're bipedal because people have seen them walk upright. There's enough evidence to say that they use rudimentary tools like rocks or maybe a stick. There's enough evidence there, but there's not enough evidence to say they use fire. That's like, let's just pick one thing and say they can do it. No, they don't use fire. If they did, we would find them. Just like people who say they bury their bones. If they buried their bones are buried, preserves them, we would be finding them. So that's the simple fact, is that if you go to that axiom, you're not involved in science. You're not saying, well, I think they can do this. Well, prove it. Prove that they create fire, because you just can't say that they do it without proving it.
Yeah, I'd like to know what they did with their dead bodies. That would be interesting to find out.
I think they just let them
I don't know, but I saw one show. What was it? Was it Harry and the Hendersons? When the old guy Don Amici said, "Oh, Bigfoot eat their dead," and I'm like, that'd be kind of creepy.
No. I'm not making a claim. You're making a claim. They do. When somebody does something, that's making a claim. When somebody says, I don't believe they can, because if you look at the evolutionary charts, the evidence is there to make that claim that they don't.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. There's no evidence to say that they do.
That's all. The claim, for that situation, the claim would be that they do make fire, and you'd have to have supporting evidence to show that. Right. And so saying, no, I don't think they can make fire is like being skeptical. Right. That's the difference.
There's no evidence to say they can make fire. I mean, how is that making a claim? That's actually negating a claim. But anyway, we can agree to disagree. That's fine.
Hey, everybody's got their own opinion, and that's fine. We all about that. Everybody's welcome to their own.
So, but I would love, if they do make fire, I would love to be invited to a weenie roast. Or or maybe make some s'mores with the Sasquatch.
Oh, a rabbit on a stick, or something.
Yeah. Well, that would be the thing. We would be finding these burnt out fires, and we haven't. Nobody has said, "Oh, look, people have found alleged Sasquatch nests." Never. There's a fire near a burned out campfire nearby. Yeah. Without evidence of a beer can or a soda can or a pop can or whatever.
Something I have found before on the river, Steve, and hadn't really discussed it anywhere much. Is,
what's that?
piles of clamshells.
Yeah.
And clamshells that are nowhere near a fire. They've been opened manually with no cutting instrument.
My other question though would be: are there otters or beaver or bear that may be able to kind of pry them open and eat the contents of them?
Yeah, but not make a pile. But not make a pile. You know.
Yeah, that is a bit odd.
That's odd. But no claim. Just reporting observation here.
That would be an interesting observation. Now, if you're saying Sasquatch did it, that would require. So here's the 5 species of Homo that existed all at the same time, and you can see the cranial sizes of the different. Unfortunately, there's no jaw. There's very few jaws in there, but you can see the orbital size, Homo erectus, with that superior brow ridge there. The archaic Homo sapiens, aka the Denisovans. Then you have the Neanderthal, which is there as well. Again, having a very prominent brow ridge, as did the Homo naledi and the Homo floresiensis. Look a lot like us, but they have huge eye sockets. So very much like us, but look at the jaw. Look at that jaw. You notice they don't have the trident in the jaw, so they don't have that protruding jaw like a Homo sapien. This is, well, again, primate ape objective. No one knows their behavior or what they really do. Well, actually, we do, because primates all have something in common. Primates live all similarly, not exactly the same, not saying that, but all primates have home ranges, territories, foci areas. We've talked about this on the show before. That is primate. And if we have to go back to the list, primate involves everything we've talked about tonight. And that would include a Sasquatch, because they have brachiated somewhere along the primate line.
Well, you could say that some of the observed behaviors would be.
Hello, Michael Fagan.
Hey, Mike.
What I'm going to say is, prime ape objective: come here with an open mind. Come here with a skeptical mind. Come here with a is a skull on the right a hobbit? I don't know.
That's Homo floresiensis, the hobbit.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
That's what they called him, the hobbit. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But they are the little.
There's things I don't know, but
pretty cool.
But as far as getting back to what they do, they all have similar. We all have similar living patterns. I can explain that with chimpanzees and gorillas, and every existing primate today lives very similarly. And you look at us, we live differently, but we are also similar as well. For example, we have home ranges. There's areas we travel to and from every day, right? We have foci areas. We have areas where we conduct group activities like schools and malls and movie theaters and lecture halls and whatever. And we have our territories. My territory is right here. The walls that surround my domicile. That's my territory. My property. That's my territory.
And family groups. We have gorillas have family groups. Humans have family groups. Sasquatches have to have family groups.
Yeah, wandering males. The other thing, and the funny thing is the behavior within those areas is all very similar. For example, and I've said this on the show before, so I know I'm preaching a lot to the choir. Okay. Just speculating. There's no good observations of Sasquatch. Well, actually, there's been some, but these are observations and behaviors from a behavioral standpoint. Like, why is a Sasquatch aggressive? Why are they aggressive in this particular area? Well, it would make sense that when a primate is aggressive, it means you're near their territory, or you're involved in a foci activity that they're a little temperamental about. One example of that would be a school. That's a foci of activity area. Now, a teacher can walk in there, no problem. Principal, the janitor, that's fine. But if a stranger walks in there, that's not supposed to be there. It's going to cause an uproar. And that's an example of behavior in foci areas. So sometimes you have to really observe the behavior, and that doesn't always happen, whether or not it's a territory or foci area. And you have to look at, how many times this behavior happens. Is this a behavior that's common to this particular area where they're particularly aggressive? You might be near a territory. And when you're near a territory, guess what happens? Your rate of recidivism increases. So the chances of you going to that area and having an experience, or having some sort of evidence, is greater than that of your typical roadside crossing, where it kind of just looks and keeps on walking, or somebody's walking through the woods and kind of looks and keeps on walking. That would be more of a home range activity and behavior, just displayed in home range activities. So.
Oh, look at Frank's comment. That's great, man.
And agreed, a wolf can be aggressive, also a bear, but they are not primates. So the reason why they can act aggressively is far different than that of a primate. This is, trust me, I've done a lot of reading, wrote a whole book on primate behavior in relation to this thing. Very well studied, very well researched. If you read books like Chimps and the Mugambi by Dr. Jane Goodall, books by Dr. George Schaller, you got to get into that, and you would understand that, people say, well, a wolf or a bear can be aggressive. Just like the guy over from Canada there, the How Not to Hunt, likes to say, thinks he knows everything about Bigfoot because he's a hunter. Well, he's never hunted a primate. Primates are forward thinking. They have a completely different type of behavior set than a canine or an Ursa. So,
well, it would seem to reason that if you want to learn about an unknown primate, first you would study the
known primates,
behaviors and habits of known primates, and then see what crosses over. Some of it will, some of it won't.
And I started doing that in 2009 before I wrote the book in 2012. As I started looking at this, I go, what makes a Sasquatch tick? There's virtually no information on how they behave, but there's observations of other primates and how they behave. And I'm not saying it's necessarily specific. There are generalizations. Okay. And I'm not saying that, okay, at 2:00 every day, they go through this cleaning ritual. No, that you would have to study them for. This is how they mate. That you would have to study how they act in their mating. That's something that would have to be studied. How they live, how they would conduct themselves within a habitat. That's all been covered. And surprisingly, when I did this in 2009, I was like, I wonder if there is something that's common to primates and behaviors. And wouldn't you know, I found books, entire books on primates, how they live, what types of cultures, and how they behave within those type areas. And truthfully, it wasn't not just one book, it was a scores of books. And they actually compared it between the New World monkeys and the Old World monkeys and the primates. So
Frank is killing me over here with these comments.
So very, very interesting, but good discussion. So let's look at that. Somebody mentioned about the Australopithecus and the skull sizes, and you can see the differences between the Homo sapiens to the Homo sapiens 100,000 years ago to Homo erectus to the Australopithecus. So you can see the differentiations. Now, the Australopithecus is basically the Paranthropus is an Australopithecine. So its skull size, its skull structure is going to be very similar, but it's going to be very robust.
Well, none of those to me look like what I saw.
Okay, I always say this. So you know what? This is the kind of lack of critical thinking that I can't stand. Is that that somebody's always got to have the last word. I said a while ago we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so
Moving on.
moving on. Somebody's always got to have the last word. But you know what? That's fine.
It's very possible.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you, Mick. Because you know what? We're not dealing with a wolf. We're not dealing with a bear. We're dealing with a primate. So we have a lot to look at as far as it, because we're all connected. That's why never mind. I was going to say that's why we hate to see a gorilla killed on TV. That's another primate behavior. We have this, with the exception of certain cultures, like within chimps and within humans, we have this aberration to see another primate killed. We hate to see our own killed. We hate to see, we hate to see gorillas killed. But the Paranthropus robust is an Australopithecine, so it has a skull similar to that, except a little larger and thicker, and that would be. So that's why I'm thinking, if you look at what people are seeing, hence with the lack of the sagittal crest, except because the Paranthropus had a sagittal crest, so it's a little bit different.
That would look similar to like the female,
Well, exactly, and with, you put but then again, that's an Australopithecus, not a Paranthropus. So it has a very similar like jaw structure, especially. So that would seem very, very close to.
That's interesting.
And here's the differences between the. Here we are, the difference between the Australopithecus and the Paranthropus.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You see, there's the sagittal crest. Oh, in males, not the females. So there again, you have a trait.
Male female trait.
Right. You never have a trait.
Right. That would be interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. We're getting close here.
So to me, it makes a lot of, they have smaller incisors and canines, relatively larger premolars and molars.
Based on, everybody got to understand, I'm making up my own mind based on what I saw. That I have no idea what the teeth look like because they didn't smile at me. But that looks really good to me. The Paranthropus does look really good.
Well, what also tells me too is you look at the what they call zygomatics, which is the eye sockets, and they have a more robust, or basically thicker type of
that brow ridge.
Brow. They have huge eyes. Huge, bigger eyes. Than an Australopithecus. Again, how many times have we talked about the Sasquatch face being flat?
Right.
And again, the Paranthropus has a flatter face, flatter forehead. And that may explain, somebody, I forget who it was, asked the question, OT, I think it was, about the forehead. The Australopithecus had a steeper forehead. The Paranthropus robustus had a flatter forehead. Now, mind you, that can change over time as well. Well,
now, this is interesting, but there is still one from the cave at the Denisovo cave, the Denisovans, when they did the DNA breakdown on those, and they finally shockingly discovered that, hey, these guys had Neanderthal DNA in them too.
Right. Well, yeah, and that would be right here, the archaic Homo sapiens.
Right.
That's if we go back to that chart, Denisovans are also called archaic Homo sapiens because they've had mixtures, and some may have. Again, this is why they're archaic, because we had 5 species of Homo at the time. So who would say that a Neanderthal would mate with an erectus, or an erectus with a Homo sapien? And or a Naledi, you would end up getting these archaic ones, and the the archaic just means they're all over the place. There's some of this, some of that, some of this.
Yeah, but out of the DNA they mapped, though, they found one strain of DNA that is unknown. So we still have one member of the family there to locate.
Right.
Completely unknown.
Yep. Exactly. So you don't know. Oops.
So what we do know for sure is we haven't found out the complete history of Homo sapiens yet.
No, and it's always interesting that they're going to dig up, it's so, to me, it's almost like we don't have enough, if we're not finding the bones, or we talking breeding population, but then again, look at the time span we're talking.
Right.
3.2 million years ago.
Yeah.
700. I mean, the Gigantopithecus didn't even exist that far back.
Yeah.
And we're finding very few bones of theirs. So finding these bones, hell, I just go to graveyard, find this one. But finding any of these guys, and Homo sapiens, actually, I believe it was Homo erectus that started burying their dead, and because they had started getting cultural, and so very, very interesting stuff. But the robustus, man, it just clicks with me. And Cliff Bergman mentioned it, and I said, I'm going to tell you, Cliff, a lot of people don't know Cliff has a background as a science teacher. So I was like, I'm going to take a look at that. And I was like, wow, look at the thick jaw. You see that quite often. The only thing with Paranthropus is they only stood. So actually, OT said Paranthropus with large molars would be a bit more reliant on vegetation. Actually, the Paranthropus was actually omnivorous, whereas the Australopithecus was mainly the fruit eater and tubers. They were mainly herbivores. They may have eaten lizards. Remember, tender meat, and there was also in reading that the Paranthropus may have used rocks or sticks or bones to tenderize their meat before they consumed it. So they may have gotten a shank of meat and tenderized it.
Oh,
so
well, anything's possible, but
well, think well, that's what they have discovered, and they all did this through their tooth enamel, display and whatever artifacts they found. When they found one of the Paranthropus, they found a bone that was used as a weapon, or not as a weapon, but as a tool, because they could see one end of the bone had been flattened out by strikes. So they,
I know, and there is a whole science based on the enamel or the wear on teeth. They can tell exactly whatever an animal or in this case a human ancestor diet by looking at studying the marks on its teeth enamel.
Now, a lot of people think that, and I think OT is kind of reaching. Let me kind of explain on that. The main reason for incisors, is for biting into, skin and flesh. So with the flattening of the teeth, and don't forget, incisors could have also been an evolutionary throwback, because you think about it, when before primates, or I don't want to say this wrong, but before the ability to hunt in groups, which all of these did, they hunted as a team. And even chimpanzees do that.
Yeah.
Think about it. The animals that use their teeth are the ones that hunt solo a lot of times. And they need to do that to inflict a fatal bite into their prey.
Right.
They take them down with the claws, like a cat, and they go for the throat, and they chew on that throat till it, with its large incisors, till it punctures, arteries and veins and stuff, and they bleed out. The whole, if you're capturing your meat or you're killing your meat by other means, the need for canine teeth is other than, and as you see, it has relatively small incisors in canines.
Yeah.
That means they killed their prey by other means. Doesn't mean they don't eat vegetation alone or relied on vegetation. It just meant they killed their prey on another trait. And as we know, as primates, we didn't really bite down on our prey. So you can tell the more omnivorous ones by the lack of canines rather than the canine teeth having the canines. Yeah. If you look at a gorilla, they have canines, large canine. And what they do is they use that to bite into tough surfaces like bamboo and tubers and stuff like that. So, so that is, the ability to communicate, the ability to forward think, that all. So where does that sit? People ask, we don't know anything about Sasquatch. Well, there it is. We're learning about how our ancestors work. It's like Sasquatch is not something magical that operates by its own set of rules. One would expect, just like all canines work on the same set of rules. That's why there's traits similar to domesticated dogs to wolves, their ancestors. They're the same thing with the cats. They're all the same. So why should Sasquatch be any different? Give me one good reason why Sasquatch should be different. Because it's not proven yet. So we don't know nothing about him. Well, that's not necessarily true. We know if we're looking for a fish that's undiscovered, we know it has gills. We know it swims in the ocean. We know by its shape of its body what it may or may not eat. So it all makes... Oh, Nick, that was good.
Mick, you're killing me.
You get the winner of the night. And just so everybody knows too that this will be the first live show that is going to tomorrow at some point. The audio portion of this show is going to be uploaded. So people that like the podcast, like listening to the show in the car or stuff like that, we're going to be available on Anchor FM, which you can get off of Spotify and Stitcher and Apple Podcast and Google Podcast. So we're going to be back on all those networks again. And some people have already picked up on that fact. So let me just, saying that, I have to read this comment when I was talking about, Sasquatch having, the gorillas having the large premolars biting down into bamboo. And our good friend Mick out there said, bamboo, that's nothing compared to my wife's meatloaf.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? My ex-wife was such a bad cook. Even the toast had bones.
Mick is wound up tonight. Earlier, he said his teachers used to call him archaic. Mick, that was a polite way. They were calling you a Neanderthal, but they were being polite about it. That's not very nice of them, man.
Yeah, don't.
Oh, man. Let's chat.
I agree. I don't care if they come from the planet Heratron. They still meet our definition of a primate. Amen to that.
Yep.
Yep, amen to that. I agree with you there, Primate. See, we can agree on things too. That's the beauty of this. There's no hard feelings on it. This is only Bigfoot, man. Only Bigfoot. But I just want to make one comment to Mick. I bought my ex-wife a pressure cooker. We had to eat off the ceiling for a week.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah. Are you kidding? She gave my kid alphabet soup. He spelled help.
Paranthropus robustus, man, very good candidate.
She made me a chocolate mousse once. I got an antler caught in my throat. Okay, enough of the bad jokes.
Oh, God.
So that's where I really think that's where we're going with this. So, to me, it seems more like a spin-off of Paranthropus. Whatever it is, I just, if anybody is bored on any day, start looking at because I've just skimmed, like this is like the cliff notes of some of the stuff I'm reading. Some of the stuff that really gets fascinating. Some of the testing they've done. They've even done some DNA testing.
Well, I was leaning towards what's this? What's Mick doing?
It's not the word archaic I objected to. It was the words they used to follow the bet.
Oh man.
Oh, you know what, Mick? We got to get you on the show. just for color commentary.
But anyway, back to Bigfoot. Okay, I was sold on Gigantopithecus blackie after I saw a recreation, a life-size recreation of the Gigantopithecus skull from the jawbone and the teeth, and that shape of that skull looked exactly like the shape of the skull. Well, of course, I didn't see his skull inside his head, but looked like the head shape of the male Bigfoot that I had seen.
Yeah, well,
so right there, I'm sold. I'm like, that's it. That is it.
But then again, I've seen recreations with putting skin on it that makes it look like an orangutan. And they're saying the testing makes it look, and orangutans have this, and so do the Giganto, had this really protruding type of mouth, like you see the difference between the Australopithecus and the Paranthropus up there. There's a difference about that protrusion. Yeah. And a lot of people don't report that protrusion with Bigfoot. If they do, it's probably something congenital, just like having a recessed chin in a Homo sapien.
Well, see, Steve, it was my experience that the male had it and the female didn't. Right. So I don't know.
Yeah. But then again, what's the difference between the Paranthropus and the Gigantopithecus skull, other than size at the time? Other than the size at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, could the Paranthropus have evolved into a Sasquatch? Could they, or again, and again, Tack also made a comment earlier. Is the interpretation of the reconstruction when they come up with final shape? It looks what it looks like. So there could be differences too. But I think I think physically, behaviorally, and diet wise, the Paranthropus is a good, and even ecologically where they lived is really a damned good candidate. And just the fact that of course the Giganto was so big because it lived in warm climate.
Right.
And I forget the exact term, but creatures that live in creatures that live in, and that's an oddity because creatures that live in colder climate are more robust.
Yeah.
So one would think that a creature as big as a Giganto moving into North America, into Canada, where it's considerably colder than a jungle, they would actually get smaller. How smaller? I don't know. Would they get down to like 8 foot? Maybe that's why a Sasquatch is 7-8 feet. Don't know.
Well, yeah, depending on the climate that was present in these areas where the fossils are found too. We're talking maybe 100,000 years ago. It might have been a really different climate. Like we can go back 10,000 years to the last ice age, and we had glaciers, all the way down to Kentucky. So it's a big difference.
Thank you, Alan. Bergman's rule. Thank you, Alan. It's hard to keep it all in this one coconut of mine, and as the older the coconut gets, the less it seems to have developed a few holes where stuff leaks out. Like the other day, I forgot the name of my kids. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, what's your name again? I know you lived with me for a while. Wait, what's your name? Anyway, but conversely, a Paranthropus who is living in a wooded area in Africa, as it would migrate across, Nepal, the colder regions and the colder regions of Canada into the northern parts of the U.S., they would get bigger, wouldn't they? I mean, that's Bergman's rule. So that and The thing is Australopithecus was about, I want to say they were about, don't quote me completely, they were about 4 feet roughly. The Paranthropus was about 5 feet. So there's about a foot difference between them. So they're both small. I mean, compared to us.
Yeah.
And Mike Stetton said, "Yeah, there's reports of Bigfoot in Alaska up to 15 feet. Hard to believe, to be honest." And I agree. And I've mentioned that too. You know, kind of look at it from this aspect when it comes to looking at a Sasquatch in size. When it becomes over 8.5 feet, where does your perception get lost? Because we're used to perceiving things at a certain height, maybe taller, what we're used to perceiving. If I see somebody that's 6'8", that guy looks like he's about 7 foot. I'm off. So the taller something gets, the more your range is off. And that's just a fact. Remember when we were little kids, how big did our fathers look? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Father saying, wow, my dad's a giant. And, you know, from that little angle, seeing other things, really, you couldn't tell who was really taller because you're smaller. Right. So you really don't get that perception. You think your father, your grandfather is a very tall man. Then I find out my father was actually the same size as I am.
And
I think he was an inch shorter than me, to tell you the truth.
That brings up an important fact too, Steve. What we need to do.
Yeah, Steve Cawthron, you tall SOB. That by the way, Steve is 7'4".
If you are in the woods and you have a sighting of Bigfoot and it is standing next to a tree, look at the limb on the tree, where it's closest where its top of its head's at, and remember where that limb is at, so you can go back later and measure and see how tall that is.
But then again, that is so difficult to do. I mean, you're like looking at, there's a Sasquatch. Am I going to look at this tree? No, I'm looking at the Sasquatch. It's very difficult.
I'll see. You know, that my rule is don't make eye contact with them. Just look around. Okay, there's a Sasquatch right in front of you. So what are you doing? Are you going to look at it and go, ah, and react? No, don't do that. Don't do that. Look around. Oh, those are nice bushes over there. That's great.
Just make sure you wear the brown pants.
And kind of glimpse over to the big guy standing in front of you, then look over here and say, oh, yeah, those are nice berry bushes over there, too. Those are really great. Just act like you can't see them, because if they think you can see them, man, they're gone.
No, you're not, Steve. You're a sweetheart of a guy.
Big guy.
And I agree. Bigfoot is something different. I agree. It could be a divergence from something off the primate scale, but they all have their similarities. So it may be a twist on all of this. Don't know. But you know,
the 15-foot.
If they even we have to even realize that. Again, this is possibilities of where they originate. But the cool thing about it is that we're able to talk about all these other primates, how they evolved, and some of them evolved, some of them went extinct. The Paranthropus, the Australopithecus, the heidelbergensis, they all, the Denisovans, they all disappeared. So what does that leave? Us, pan troglodytes, and then you have the gorillas, and you have the orangs, and the bonobos, and that's all you have left of all of that. So, and then you have this thing called Sasquatch, which is bigger than all the rest of us. So my question is it something that evolved from something like this, or is it something that sprung out separate from all this? But what makes this most interesting is that it's all relevant. All of this is relevant. Because you can see the connections between the Paranthropus and the Australopithecus and the heidelbergensis and the Homo sapiens. You can see all their little common connections and how they evolved. So we can take a look at a Sasquatch and go, what would a Sasquatch be 150,000 years ago? Had it come from somewhere? Yeah. Did it come from something we haven't found yet? Very well, possibly, maybe. So primate, I agree with you there too. the
The
fossil
size,
record is incomplete.
the size could be based on the environment too, because
Yeah.
where like they found the Homo floresiensis, the Hobbit, those little guys like a little over 3 feet tall, and it was because they were contained on an island. And when you're in a small environment like that, everything tends to get smaller. So if you had a North America, I mean, you don't have any reason to be. You're not restrained in any way.
Right.
So the Paranthropus robustus could have started growing bigger, possibly.
Right.
Could be through genetics too. Only the biggest, toughest guys made it. You know.
Well, again, Bergman's rule. It's going to a colder
Right.
climate. It's going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Question in the chat from Mike Stetton. How did they ever estimate the one in Whitehall in 1976? It had a white marker on 8 feet. That is correct. That telephone pole, unfortunately, 2 years ago got pulled out. I still have a picture of it though. But what happened is Brian Goslin was a police officer, so he's a trained observer, and he estimated, seeing it walking away, that was the height of what it was. So it's based on a police officer's observation. So,
well, somebody mentioned earlier in the chat that there had been reports of 15-foot tall Bigfoots in Alaska, and I'll tell you what, I'm totally ready to consider that as a possibility. I believe it's possible.
Not 15 feet. You know why? Because it would look like a friggin' dump truck went through someplace.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because something 15 feet tall, it's going to be about 6 feet wide. You know, you got to understand, you're gonna have a height. You're gonna have some width to go with that height.
Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be proportional. I've seen them long and lanky. They were extremely tall, but the midsection looked like it was exaggerated. You know,
right? But you also have to look at if something's really that lanky,
right?
And Steve, who's 7'4" out there in the chat, may agree. He's lanky too. But the problem is that, you know, after a while, your back starts to hurt.
Yeah.
You know, you have longer bones like your femurs and your tib fibs, you know, are under a lot of stress. So if something is 15 feet tall, it can't be 3 feet wide. It would look like a walking tree, for crying out loud.
Well, it depends on how nature designed you, though, Steve. I mean, you got to think about an otter. Okay, they're really long and they have legs in the front, legs in the back. Or those little Dachshunds dogs. You would think, oh gosh, they're going to have back problems and stuff, and maybe they do. You know,
so Dave Winter asked a question: 23-inch prints near the Cascades. Extrapolate that. Very simple. I can. Were they found in the summer or winter? Were they in the snow or were they in dirt? So I'll wait for that return on that question. So, and then when I get the next question, I'm going to ask one more question. So I'm going to kind of, because I don't have that in front of, I don't have the picture in front of me.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta.
I believe, now this is my personal opinion, and everybody's free to have theirs. I believe that it is extremely possible to have a creature up to maybe 15 feet in height.
Okay, so Dave said road and gravel. Okay. So, and my question would be, is it possible that there could have been some soil erosion? Were they fresh? Was it a commonly traveled area? Could somebody be putting those down? Did it have an arch? And I would have to take a look about, yeah, and that's true. Mick makes a good point. And that's what I'm saying. Cynical about Sasquatch above 9 feet tall. The biology of primates, our skeletons have max capacity.
Right.
You know, something 15 feet tall, that is going to have a hell of a lot of back problems. You know, because now think about it, because your center of balance is so high up.
Yeah.
It's not conducive. And you talk about, it's not conducive to something that's going to climb around very easily. A 15-foot tall Sasquatch would very clearly be spotted.
Yeah.
You know, and think about it. You have moose and elk that move through the woods, as Tack pointed out. They get through the woods just fine. You know, they're pretty wide with their racks. And that's how you would really trade. Real fresh near Mount Rainier. I don't know, David. I haven't seen those pictures. But if they're on a road by the gravel, that means there's people nearby, and somebody, you know, 23 inches seems a little bit large to me. But then again, you know, in a what size foot do we have for an NBA player? Some of them could be 22, 23 inches too. So, you know, and don't forget, primates have, you know, different size feet. I mean, I know people that were short and had huge feet, and people that were tall and had small feet.
Yeah.
You know, I know people that are 6 foot tall have size 10 feet. I'm 5'9", 5'10", and I have 6 feet or 10, size 10 foot. So, you know, the thing is body proportions can be dimorphic. So, yeah, I had him. That would only make it about 12 foot. Yeah, and you know what?
Right.
You know, just like there are some exceptions to Homo sapiens, there may be a Sasquatch that may grow to 10 feet, 11 feet. And I think, you know, a 10-foot Squatch could very well have a 23-inch. And that's only, you know, a foot, you know, taller. They may have the same, and I agree. If they can be 8 foot tall, they can be 9 foot tall. But once you start stretching the 9 foot level, you start.
Well, granted, a lot of this may be shocked witness exaggerated because they don't understand.
Well, we're talking about the footprint though.
Right.
You know,
well,
23-inch tracks, that could be a real big, you know, and again, like I say, you have those, you know, the dimorphism as you do in humans and as you do in other primates as well. Then once in a while you have somebody that's, you know, off the scale for some reason, and that could very well be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, you know, Steve, who said, I knew a guy in Chico, California was 6 foot and had a size 19-inch foot.
Yeah.
That can happen too. So
yeah,
who knows? You know, who knows? Again, you know, and I would agree with Primate, but here that, you know, this is one of those things where, you know, we need a little more observation on this to really get our, you know, our heads wrapped around it. But one would think that you know, the primate frame, you know, well, who's to say, you know, what it can handle? Because well, you look at it this way, is that we became bipedal, but we've also became taller. But because we're bipedal and taller, we incur a lot of back problems. We incur a lot of knee problems and hip problems. Do we not?
Yeah, but see, there you go. We're talking about a different species, and we're comparing it to humans, and that's wrong. That's wrong because the muscle density and the bone density of another species is different than what a human is.
I don't disagree with you there, but what we're dealing with is bipedalism puts pressure points on different parts of the body that quadrupedalism does. So while we can say, hey, you know what? The Gigantopithecus, and the reason why they think they're quadrupeds too is because of their size. That a 10 foot tall and the way their body was allegedly shaped based on their skull interpretation.
Right.
You know, would make them very uncomfortable. Even a gorilla, you watch a mountain gorilla try to walk bipedally, it looks like it's not going to support that for very long.
Right.
So again, we can make some commonalities that you would think that if something was, you know, 15 feet tall,
yeah,
it's going to incur some. I mean, yeah, the bone. Who knows? The vertebrae is going to be bigger and thicker. One would think their legs would be bigger and thicker, but it's still all about leverage.
Here's the thing. I don't think that the 15-foot Sasquatch would be common. Okay, but
no.
I think it is possible. I believe it is possible. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, any size is possible. I mean. You know, I met a guy by the name of down in Alabama by the name of Chuck Creel, and I met his uncle and his father. And Chuck was the shortest one out of all of them. He was 6'7". Yeah. So I have a picture of me at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference in 2011. I don't know if you got a chance to meet with them, but I'm picturing in between them, I look like a midget because each one of them is like 6'10". So, and I'm like, what the heck? Yeah, so they're a full foot on me. So
Okay, Dave.
So hey,
But,
and hello, Rod. Rod, welcome to the show. He's back again, as is Keith Worley. Hello, Keith.
welcome, Keith. Rod.
So yeah, I don't want to sound closed-minded because I'm really not.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that every adult male Sasquatch is going to be 15 feet tall. No. I'm just saying that those reports of those being reported up to 15 feet tall in Alaska, I think it's possible. Everything's bigger up there. Look at
I think
Kodiak bears. Come on.
I think it's possible it could be 10 feet and people just saw this huge thing like,
Or it could have been 8 feet. And
or it could have been 12 feet. You don't know.
Right.
Unless you were there, you really don't know. So I guess, if I have the witness standing in front of me and talking with me and saying, hey, it was 15 feet, who am I to say it's not?
Well, see, that's the thing that gets me. A lot of the witness reports, and I'm not knocking the people that are making reports. Please, if you see one, report it to somebody. But every report that you see on TV, it was at least 8 feet tall. It was at least 8 feet tall.
Right.
It was at least 8 feet tall. But they don't tell you how they made that. That estimate.
Yeah.
They don't say it was at least 8 feet tall because I saw it standing next to this tree and that bottom limb where its head was at measured 8 feet from the ground. They don't tell you that. They'll say it was at least 8 feet tall. Now that's just a perception issue. And to me, it might have been 8 feet tall. To the next guy, it might have been 11.
And you see, I kind of agree with Prime here. 15 foot breaks the law of physics would be supernatural for sure. I kind of agree with that.
No.
I kind of agree with it. 15 feet, you got to understand, that's almost twice 8 feet.
Yes, it is.
That's way big.
That's big.
And the footprint would probably have to be like the foot would have to be 30 inches, 40 inches. I don't know.
The difference in size between an American black bear and an Alaskan Kodiak bear, and tell me that the Kodiak bears are supernatural. No, they're not.
No. But then again, we are talking about a different. We're talking about ursas. We're talking about ursas. We're not talking about primates.
Okay, wait a minute now. Now we're talking about a different branch of primate, which would be like the same as difference between talking about humans and gorillas. Okay, they're a different branch, So we're talking about bears. Okay, look at the black bear. Look at the Alaskan Kodiak bear. Bigger bears, both bears. One's bigger. It's extremely plausible that you could have one that big.
Well, and Aaron brings up a great point. Yeah, they can vary height dramatically. Is it possible Squatch can be affected? Absolutely, I believe so.
Right, they could.
And in some areas, like David Parker saying, and Keith is saying that in some areas that 12 feet seems to be the benchmark for their size. Who knows? Who knows? Very, very curious. And 12 feet, who's to say? But I do kind of agree. 15 is a little. I mean, you're talking about something that's tall as my roof line.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking, for a very big old boy here in the lower states, 12 foot would probably be the top of the scale at the most.
Good evening, John.
Yep. But now, if you go up north, okay, the guys got to be tougher. They might be bigger up there.
And Alan brings a point up that bears are quadrupeds and Squatches are bipedal. So that affects height too because of, guess what? Spinal compression.
Yeah, well,
Spinal compression. How many I knew at least 2 Army Rangers that actually, after all their parachute jumps, came in, lost a couple of inches on their height.
Yeah.
Because of spinal compression. So you would think something that would be 15 feet tall would have a lot of spinal because you're pushing a lot of weight down on one spine. So that's why it doesn't make sense to me. I'm not saying that, somebody's perception, it was 15 feet. How'd they come up with that?
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I'll tell you, the one I saw that was around, give or take, 8 feet tall, could have been 7'8", could have been 8'2". We had kind of an area off the utility pole where I had seen it, where it was kind of lined up by where my flashlight is, because I was a little bit. And then again, I was also at a downgrade angle, so it can make it look taller there too. So was mine 7 feet? Maybe.
I was only able to get 2 measurements. I have seen more than 2 creatures, but I got 2 measurements.
Yeah.
One of them, Brandon, my nephew did. The female Squatch was standing next to a tree. He held his hat up. We did a photo comparison. Where he held his hat up was 9 feet.
Yeah.
9 feet.
And then again, that perception could be off a little bit.
But the photo couldn't be.
Huh?
The photo couldn't be.
I don't know. I've seen one particular organization make this, because it was the comparison picture was taken at the wrong angle or the wrong grade. It made it look a lot taller than what it was. So, you know, I can't say for sure, you know, without seeing it, saying, okay, all right, I buy that. And then again, it all comes down to what the witness had observed.
Right.
You know, and like I say, you know, and especially my years of taking witness statements from people, not only on the Bigfoot side of things, but in the criminal world.
Right.
They're, you know, people's, you can have 5 people witness the same crime and see 5 different things. And their descriptions of a person can be varying from, you know, oh, the person was tall. He was about, you know, tall. Well, can you describe tall for me? Well, he's 6 feet tall. Well, that's tall. Okay. That's good size. It's not compared. Then you talk to the next guy at 6'2". You talk to another guy, he's 5'8". So you can get those varying descriptions. It's all based on your observations, based on shock value. So
you talk to a guy that's 6'4", 6'5", and you ask him, what do you think considered tall? He'd probably say, 6'8", 6'9", you know, would be tall.
And then you look at, you know, and you get those too. Well, he was a large man. Well, what's large?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is he built, or is he fat, or is he, you know?
I'm large.
And then again, you're fun sized. And then you and then you have to look at too, is that, was the witness on an angle? Were they on a downgrade, or are they on the flat surface? Because truthfully, if you're on a flat surface, you're going to get your best height estimate. But if you're slightly lower or slightly higher, like people say, oh, I saw a Bigfoot on the ridge. Oh, it had to be, you know, 15 feet tall, 12 feet tall. Well, you're on it, you know, you're at a disadvantage there.
Right.
So
you got to have something to compare it to. You got to have something you can go back later and measure.
But then again, if you're looking at something at a different angle, that's not necessarily true either. Because I've seen people see something from an angle, and then people come up and try to measure it, and then, wow, this thing is 12 feet tall. But they're measuring it on, well, that's where they saw the head was, but they're measuring on the flat grade close up.
Yeah.
They're not measuring it from the angle they're looking at it. So if I'm looking up at something, it's going to show higher up on my landmark than it actually is. Because as I go up, that landmark's going to come down.
Right.
So,
you know, what I'm basically describing is, if you see one in the woods standing next to a tree, look at the tree and try to find out where the nearest limb is at that you can gauge the size by.
If we leave one of my extra speedos as bait, all you have to do is go back and bait the area next day. It'll be doubled over begging for help.
Oh, man.
And you know what? I agree. 15 feet would mean 6 foot wide shoulders. I tend to agree with that. It would be tremendously wide.
It could be. Yes, it very well.
Yeah, you would see. And then again, you look at anomalies. Can an 8 foot Squatch be 6 foot wide? I don't know. I'm 5'10" and I carry 46-inch shoulders, so I'm pretty broad. So you know, dimorphism is an interesting thing. I have a 30-inch waist and I have 46-inch shoulders. Figure that one out. So means I can't get a suit off the rack. But hey, guess who showed up too? Nani's back. Hello, Nani.
Connie, welcome.
So late to the party, but the party is still not over yet.
Glad to have you. Oh, right. Yeah, I want to remind everybody, anybody who's watching on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want to, ring the bell. It helps us bring you more features for the channel. Okay?
That's it.
Thanks,
That's
guys.
it. And we're glad to be broadcasting. We have, we have since the last month and a half, have added over 100+ new subscribers. So welcome all.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
I'm glad you guys are here and subscribed. It's also very interesting too in all this research about the air sacs.
Yeah.
And how we don't have them, and heidelbergensis didn't have them, but Paranthropus did. And those air sacs, can be.
Well, it leads you to consider a lot of these reports of speech. Now,
Yeah.
I've never heard it myself, but is it possible?
The lack of air sacs, having. Hey, Alan, have a great night. The lack of air sacs is what really was the speech indicator. That's why we don't have them. So it's quite interesting. All this stuff. There's so many different variables when you get into this evolutionary stuff. It just makes your mind boggle. So it was kind of fun just to throw some of this stuff out here tonight and talk about it.
And something else we should consider, Steve. Bigfoot, as the Sasquatch that we speak about, it may not be one species. It might be more than one that we don't know about.
I agree, but I'm kind of skeptical about that.
Yeah, well, of course. I'm
just on the basis is it's bad enough we have one unknown primate. Now we supposedly have another one.
I'm proposing that it's possible to have more than one unknown primate. For a fact, scientifically, we do have one unknown primate that we have not found in the fossil record, because we have the DNA evidence to support it, but we have not found the fossils from it yet. So that's one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just Mick says that if we don't want to bait them with the meatloaf, we could throw it at them.
Oh, come on, Mick, man, I bet you her meatloaf is great, dude. I love meatloaf.
You know what? We'll be over for dinner. We want the meatloaf.
That's right. Hey, and I eat bamboo stir fry too, so it's fine with me.
Hey, Chris, thanks for subscribing, and glad you're loving the show. We try to have some fun here.
Yeah, thanks.
Primate, I love you, brother or sister. I love you, man. I like having spirited discussions. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. Well, first of all, I would like DNA on mixed meatloaf. Make sure that it's actually beef.
DNA what? What I was talking about earlier, primate objective. The Denisovan project, what identified the different types of DNA in the Neanderthal and Denisovans. They also came up with a DNA structure from an unknown primate.
Right.
So we do it. That is documented scientific evidence. There is an unknown primate that has not been discovered by science yet that is supposed to be in our family, and that we've yet to find it. So there's more to the fossil record to come, maybe, if we can find it. But that's a fact. That's proof. That's science. Yep. And that's the thing I love about science is this DNA stuff and this new environmental. Well, it's not new now. It's like over a year old. Environmental DNA. I think that is going to go a long way to helping us locate these dudes.
Sure is. I mean, if you think about it, if something touches something now, environmental DNA from the oils of your hand that leave fingerprints, you can get DNA off of now. It's pretty scary if you're thinking of doing something wrong.
Make sure everybody walks a straight line now. We're going to get your DNA if you don't.
Well, then there's the whole gen bank thing. I mean, you know how they're solving crimes now?
Oh yeah.
It's like, okay, if we have a suspect, all we need to do is get their, or we have this unknown DNA.
Right.
We don't know where it came from. This is how they caught the Golden State Killer. Well, what they did is that when you do 23andMe or the Ancestry DNA, you have the opportunity to put it in the gen bank. And the cool thing about that is they can find out. NASA scientists couldn't determine what's in my wife's meatloaf. Oh boy.
Come on,
what kind of audience do we have here? Nani goes, no more bodies in my trunk.
Okay. All right. We love you, Nani. You know that, don't you? We love you.
So what they're doing is if you have this opportunity to put this in the gen bank so you can find out if there's anybody you're necessarily related to, like, they have DNA from historical figures and stuff in there too now.
Yeah.
And there's another thing I agree with. Bigfoot will never be proven by waving a piece of paper in the air. That's truth that.
Yeah. I'm afraid to put my DNA in that thing because it might come back unwanted,
you know what? I'm dying to do it. I may do it just before I go back to work.
I don't know, man. It's better to not know, because what are you going to do if it pops up and says, "Congratulations, Mr. Kulls, you're a direct descendant of Nathan Bedford Forrest"?
I don't think that's going to happen to me.
Burn the results, dude.
Well, yeah, I just never say anything.
Oh man.
And
I think
that would be
really cool. The stuff they're doing now, it is really cool.
But that's how they caught the Golden Gate Killer. Is they had this unknown DNA and they ran it through the gen bank, and they got a relative hit on the gen bank.
Oh.
So they said, wow, this is a cousin of this person.
Oh.
And that's how they started investigating the cousin.
Right.
And they started looking at the family branches, and that's how they got to the guy.
Oh, that's so smart. Oh.
And that's how they're trying to solve a lot of cold cases now, is by getting this DNA and comparing it to the gen bank. But it takes long to do. It takes, like when they first started, typing DNA, it took a few months to do. Yeah. Because now you're comparing it to millions of different DNA samples, not just what's in the CODIS. So it's really
Matthew Johnson, related to Matthew Johnson. Oh gosh. But with the new
Primate, I would love to know that. All up for that.
Wow.
I'd like to hear your obviously we want to hear from folks about that. Why don't you reach out to me at my email address, which is admin@squatchdetective.com. We'll get a conversation going and maybe get you on the show. I would love to have you on. So yeah. And you know what's really bad though about getting your DNA done is when Maury Povich shows at your door. We have the DNA results, and they are.
I remember those shows. Oh my god,
it's still on.
That was so hilarious. I would watch Maury after the kid went to school years ago. After he would get on the bus, like Maury Povich would come on like 8 a.m. here in Kentucky. I don't know what channel it was, and I would watch Maury, and it was always, "You're not the father," or "You are the father." That was so hilarious. Oh
wow.
Maury's been so responsible for more DNA tests than any other primetime show. What, Ronnie?
Nani says her family tree looks like a burning tree crossed with a thorn bush. Okay, thank you, sir. Well, I don't really look at Facebook messages while I'm on the air. It's kind of distracting to me, but I will get back to you on that, brother.
Okay, sure.
But the what was I gonna say? It's like a Schoharie County family tree, one branch. You know, I looked up my family tree. I found 2 dogs using it. A couple of more bad jokes of the night.
Now, hey, no joke though. DNA, this is really great, and the DNA technology has really been progressing over the past few years. And that I'm a firm believer that is how we're going to solve this mystery.
Provided we can spend the money on the equipment available to make that. Provided we practice proper DNA collection.
Yeah. Contamination will kill it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, not only that, not only contamination will kill it, but degradation.
Yeah.
So again, folks, I've said this a million times. Please do not collect your DNA evidence in plastic bags.
No plastic bags.
Paper bags. Only paper bags. Those plastic bags retain humidity, which destroys DNA. So, well, Chris,
Jesse, me and Mick's been watching the same shows.
Send it to Melba for some really fun results.
Yeah. Probably.
Well, folks, we have had one hell of a show tonight, so I think we're gonna kick it off now. But can you believe it's we got just a few minutes left to go.
Well, this has been fun. I mean, my side's aching, but we did we learned some stuff tonight. I really like that Paranthropus robustus. I really do like that.
Yeah.
And given the size difference, if you can figure that these dudes could have increased in size over the years, I think that would be a good likely candidate.
Yep.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very likely candidate. I mean, like I said, it wasn't my idea. It was actually Cliff Barrickman who in the show, and I want to look at this more and talk about this more.
It makes sense.
Of course, I know Cliff's a busy guy, so I know he did a show last week. I didn't want to really drag him into this one.
Yeah, like Cliff. That's a great guy.
Yep. So, but yeah, what's going on? Well, this week we are going to try to get a Squatch stories out. So that will definitely go out. There's a lot of stuff that I got that I'm not telling many people about, but unfortunately it's about one debunking, and just for folks who want to know, next Monday and Tuesday next week, I'll be out on expedition. So in a couple of weeks, I'll be hopefully bringing some video back. So if not, just some video of having some fun, but because a bad day squatching, oh boy, Melba might say you're related to my ex's meatloaf. So yeah, that would be awesome, Prime. We'll get with you. I'll reach out to you tomorrow because I'm going to call it a night here tonight in a few seconds. But next Monday and Tuesday I'm out on expedition, so hopefully some stuff will happen. Always hoping that. Yes, and I OT says to remember the meatloaf. I will bring a meatloaf. I'm going to drill a hole in it and attach it to a chain, so hopefully it won't break off. Usually I used a pork chop, but
come on, I've never had a bad meatloaf. Come on.
I have, but I make a wonderful meatloaf. I make. A lot of people don't know a lot of like my little hidden talents. One of them is cooking, so I love to cook.
Hey man, the secret to meatloaf is garlic. Garlic, got to have garlic in there.
Yeah.
Our chat room's hopping. You guys, I'm so proud of you guys. Every one of you. You're so smart.
That's it. I mean, we got a great group here, and I want to thank everybody's participation tonight. It's awesome. You guys make the show when we, that's why I love this social media platform.
Yeah.
It's really good to chat out. And tomorrow, like I said, we'll be getting the show downloaded and converted over to audio format, so we can put that on Anchor FM, so people can if they want to re-listen to the show or they miss portions of the show, they can just download it and listen to it in the car, on the radio, at work.
Yeah, if we get quiet during the broadcast, it's because we're reading the comments from the chat room. These guys I'm telling you.
Did I research the documents sent to me a few weeks back? Oh, yeah, I remember those. I started to do some, but then, it's been strangely for somebody that's, I just had to put everything down. I just had to put everything down for the night, or for the last couple of weeks, because I just got so overwhelmed and I just needed a break and let my mind just decompress. Because, like I said, some of the stuff I have coming up, it's going to rock some of the world, not necessarily in the Bigfoot world, but I have this huge debunking that has been completed for a couple of weeks now, and I'm just waiting on the go-ahead to release it. So
it's coming.
It's coming. Oh boy, it's something else. And it's gonna create more trolls than we can shake a stick at.
Yeah.
But anyway, I appreciate y'all being on the YouTube channel. If you haven't seen some of the videos that we have out there, give them a watch, give them a thumbs up, give them a share. We all appreciate it. And the more you share, sharing is caring. The more you share, the more subscribers we get. When we hit our golden number, then we can do a lot more with this network and be able to give you live links and all kinds of wonderful stuff like that. So folks, I want everybody to be safe. And now more than ever, we thought COVID was bad, and then other stuff hit. So be safe out there. Keep your six watched. And remember, don't let circumstances dictate your behaviors. Let your behaviors dictate the circumstances. I think that's the best piece of advice I can give today. So anyway, on behalf of me and Chris, any final words before we kick off?
I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us. Thanks, folks. See you next time.
And on behalf of me and everybody else here at Squatch-D TV, mainly the guy downstairs there, we want to wish everybody a happy and safe week. God bless. And most of all, keep on squatching. We'll catch you all here next week.
Hey folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless. And keep on squatching. Hey folks, you've been watching